Today, we're diving headfirst into a story that's about so much more than an empty stomach. We're going to explore the deep psychological horror of Knut Hamsun's hunger and really try to understand how the absence of something as simple as food can tear a mind apart, piece by terrifying piece.
Let's just start with the novel's very first line, because right from the get-go, this isn't just an introduction, it's a warning. It sets up the two main characters, our narrator, a man who is literally defined by his starvation, and the city of Christiania itself. And the book makes it clear this city isn't just a backdrop. Oh no, it's a living, breathing thing that leaves a permanent mark, a scar, on anyone who dares to walk its streets. This is our psychological battleground.
So here's the journey we're about to take into that abyss. First, we'll get into the raw physical reality of what starvation actually does to a person. Then, we'll look at this insane, crippling pride that's constantly at war with his need to survive. From there, we'll watch as his mind starts to basically cannibalize itself, creating its own bizarre reality. We'll see how the city transforms into this monster. And then, finally, we're going to ask the big question. What is he really hungry for? Okay, first things first. We have to ground ourselves in the physical. Before the mind truly shatters, the body suffers. And Hamsun is just ruthless in showing us every single agonizing detail of that suffering. Think about it. Every single sensation, every thought he has, is filtered through this lens of pain. His whole world shrinks down to the feeling of that empty stomach, the dizziness that hits him in the street, that profound weakness that turns just walking into an impossible task. This isn't some abstract idea of hunger. It's a constant physical torture. Now listen to that language. That's what's so striking here. He doesn't just say, "Man, I'm hungry." No, he describes it as an invasion. It's this grotesque, almost body horror image of being eaten from the inside out. And that just perfectly captures how starvation must feel. It's less like something is missing and more like something evil is there, just consuming you. And you can just see the relentless downward spiral right here. It starts with these practical, humiliating things, right? Pawning his belongings one by one until there's nothing left, having to sneak past his landlady because the rent's overdue. But then it gets so much worse. His body starts to reject the very thing it needs. He gets nauseous just looking at a butcher's shop. His body is in constant pain. His brain is just a fog of confusion. Every single one of these is another step down into the abyss. So let's see how this builds into the story's central, really tragic conflict. Because his physical hunger is terrible, for sure, but there's another hunger waging a war inside him, and it's a fiercer one. This all-consuming, absolutely destructive pride. And this is the part that is just so maddening. He's not just a passive victim here. He is his own worst enemy. Time and time again, a chance for food or for help comes along, but he can't take it. He has to perform. He has to play the part of a man who is above need, a man of intellect and means. And it's performance that is literally killing him. Okay, look at this scene. You've got a beggar, a man with a physical disability, asking for a halfpenny for milk. It's simple, it's honest, it's a direct statement of need. There's no shame, just a request. Our narrator, who is in an even worse state, just can't bring himself to be that direct. Oh no, for him, this is a stage. It's time for a grand performance. And here it is, the self-sabotage in real time. He decides to give the man money he doesn't have, but he can't just give it. He has to pawn his own waistcoat, something he desperately needs. And then, to justify this completely insane act to himself, he invents this whole fiction. He convinces himself the beggar is some noble man he owes an old debt to. It's a total fabrication, all designed to protect his ego from the simple truth. He's giving away his last chance at a meal to a complete stranger. This lays the tragedy completely bare. Look at this. In his mind, he's a genius, right? He's on the verge of writing this monumental work on philosophical cognition. But what's his grim reality? He's pawning the very waistcoat that holds the pencil he would need to write it. This massive canyon between his grand self-image and his pathetic physical reality, that is the absurd, heartbreaking tragedy of this entire book. And this brings us to the next stage of his decay, which is, well, this is where things get really weird. Because when you deny the body food for too long, the mind starts to create its own. And what it creates is a universe of pure paranoia and delusion. The world outside of him hasn't actually changed, but his perception of it has completely warped. Simple, everyday things become loaded with sinister meaning. His brain just
desperate for fuel, for any kind of stimulation, starts overanalyzing everything, weaving these incredibly intricate conspiracies out of absolutely nothing.
This quote, this is one of the most disturbing things in the entire novel. It's a hallucination, but it's also a physical sensation of God literally reaching in and pulling his mind apart. The imagery is so visceral, you can almost feel those nerve threads. It shows his delusions aren't just thoughts, they are felt experiences. The barrier between his mind and his body has completely dissolved. So what's really fascinating here is that he's not just passively having these hallucinations happen to him. No, he becomes an active, compulsive creator of them. He tells these wild lies not just to fool other people, but because the act of inventing, the act of creation itself, is a kind of nourishment for him. He gets lost in the stories he's making up.
And here's a perfect example. He sees a woman on the street, and just on a whim, he invents a name for her, Eula Jolly. Later, he's talking to a total stranger, and he starts spinning this incredibly elaborate fantasy about her being a fairy tale princess. This character, Eula Jolly, becomes more real and more important to him than the crushing reality of his own hunger. She's a fiction he can actually escape into.
And this sequence right here shows you just how fast the breakdown can happen. It starts with something so normal, an old man on a park bench reading a paper. Right away, his mind latches on, decides this guy is part of some secret conspiracy. Then he feels this compulsion to engage, inventing a whole cascade of bizarre lies. And here's the final, insane twist. He gets furious at the old man for believing him. His fragile fantasy is so real that he needs the old man to challenge it, and when he doesn't, he just explodes. Okay, so we've seen his internal world just completely collapse. Now let's look at how that projects outward and transforms the city of Christiania from just a place into a living, breathing monster that is actively trying to destroy him. Even the place he lives, right? His only shelter, it feels hostile. He doesn't see a room, he sees a coffin. The floor is unstable, the space feels sinister. It's a perfect physical representation of his own claustrophobic mental state. He literally feels like he's being buried alive, even in his own room. Wow, what a powerful image. He looks out at the harbor, a sight that anyone else might find beautiful. And what does he see? He sees monsters. The city's features aren't just buildings and ships anymore. They've become predators, personified threats just lying in wait for him. His own paranoia has completely repainted the landscape. And it's just everywhere. A woman's face on the street becomes loathsome. A watchman just holding an axe feels like a direct physical threat to him. A casual, meaningless insult from a cop is interpreted as this deep attack on his very identity, and it sends him into a rage. Even an advertisement for burial shrouds seems to be grinning at him, mocking his slow, agonizing death. The city becomes this relentless assault on his fractured nerves. So, after witnessing this total physical and psychological collapse, we're left with the most important question of all. We've seen his hunger for food, obviously, but is that really all there is to it? And this is the crucial takeaway. The physical starvation is almost like a catalyst. It strips away all his social masks, all his pretensions, and what it reveals is a much deeper, more existential kind of emptiness. The lack of bread just exposes a fundamental lack of meaning, a lack of having any place at all in the world. And that's the question this whole disturbing story leaves you with. His stomach is empty, yes, but is the real void in his soul? Is he starving for a meal, or is he starving for the world to finally recognize the genius he believes himself to be? Is he fighting against poverty, or is he fighting against a universe that feels utterly, crushingly indifferent to his existence? That is the terrifying heart of Hamsun's hunger.